Hello everyone, Rurikhan here coming at you with another video, and today I brought in my good friend Globku, and we're going to be talking about Tales of Arise. We've been playing it over the last couple of days. Bandai Namco was kind enough to send us an early copy, and neither of us have actually finished the game because, would you imagine it, a Tales game actually turns out to be pretty long. And in my case, it's not just because of how long the game is, it's because I put it upon myself to play it in the hardest difficulty, which was not the smartest of ideas. But how are you doing, Globku? You having a good time with Tales?
I'm having an okay time with Tales. It wouldn't be a Rurikhan video if you didn't play it on a hard, first of all. So I wouldn't expect anything else from you. And yeah, I gotta give props to Bandai Namco because they actually sent us codes pretty early, which is kind of necessary sometimes for these longer games, for RPGs. That said, I think you had some issues,
Yeah.
so you didn't get it as early, and I didn't like the game that much, so I didn't really commit too much to it. But we'll talk about our thoughts on the game, and I think we both played enough to have sort of a solid opinion on it.
Yeah.
The things that we're not going to be able to talk about is like, hey, do I think the story is good? Do I think
I can actually talk about that. I don't know about the payoff, but I can talk about...
Yeah, exactly, because you never know where stuff is going unless you finish the game. So that makes this less of a review, but let's just say a very informed first impression that is, I don't know, about 8 to 10 hours into the game, I would say.
For you, for me, it's more like 22 hours. And actually,
22 hours?
Dude, it's probably more because the save file doesn't keep track of... I don't think the save file keeps track of like your retries and the amount of time that I spent on that second boss. Like, I think it's probably closer to 25 hours for me, but that's because I've really been enjoying it though. That's the thing. Like, I've been having a complete blast with it. But for people that are not familiar with the Tales of series, there's so many different Tales of games, and you know, sometimes people seem to like ones, not like the others. I always hear good things about the one that's on the Xbox. I think is it Vesperia? I don't know. It's the one that's on the Xbox. I think I always hear good things about that one. And you know, there's different ones. People like some, they don't like the others. But Tales of is essentially a JRPG. Pretty much all of the Tales games are JRPGs, and the thing that they do differently from traditional JRPGs is that most JRPGs are like turn-based, whereas Tales of Rise takes a real-time combat. Tales of series in general takes a more real-time combat approach, and I think that with Tales of Rise, that was kind of like a real point of focus because the combat, in my opinion, is very well polished, and I really enjoyed it, even though the first time that I played it during the demo, I didn't like it at all. I was like, the first time I went, because you get overwhelmed. There's just so much information, right?
Yeah, there's too much in that demo. They kind of throw you into the game with 6 playable characters right away and a ton of systems unlocked from the get-go. And it's really hard in a 1-hour demo to train you to use all that stuff. So it ended up being a bit confusing. I think that was a pretty bad demo. It was definitely a demo made for Tales fans who already have a lot of that knowledge coming into these games. But when you're making a demo, you got to capture that new audience.
Yeah.
You got to capture those guys that are like, hey, I'm going to try a Tales for the first time. And I think the demo failed at doing that.
It was, for me, I did it when I was live on Twitch, and it was actually very good that I did it that way because the first time I played through them, I was like, okay, maybe this game just isn't for me. I don't know what's going on. I can't understand a damn thing. Because, again, it's just a game that doesn't demo very well. But then people in my chat start saying, oh, you should try it again and try doing this, try doing that. They started giving me a couple of tips. And then I started going through them. We're like, hey, you know what? I actually really like this combat system. This is actually pretty fun. And although I should mention, like, if you played the demo and you were like, oh, this game might just be not for me, let me tell you that the actual final game does a much better job of slowly introducing you to the different mechanics of combat, and it makes a world of difference in how you actually learn each thing, because it just starts layering the complexity on top slower and gives you time to adapt to everything that is going on.
Yeah, I mean, you're 20 hours in or 25 hours in, and you still don't have the 6 members that you had in the demo. So, like that alone should tell you how much time the game takes to introduce all of those systems. And there's a lot of stuff that was probably present in the demo that I didn't even know you could do. And I've played the demo, I think, like 4 times to give it a proper analysis. And yeah, just stuff like, oh, I can hold this button and it's a different ability. Okay. No idea that was a thing. And I actually really enjoyed when the game took its time and it was like, okay, let's strip this thing down. Let's just have a bare bones systems and slowly introduce them over time. Like the combat felt a lot better than it did in the demo for sure.
So let's start things off by talking about visuals, as I tend to do in these videos. And personally, I think the visuals are friggin' fantastic. I think the game looks really good. I'm playing it on the PlayStation 5. And one of my favorite things is the art style. That they have that water painting, cell shading. It reminds me a little bit of Bravely Default, even though it's not exactly like Bravely Default, but like if you watch those painted maps and backgrounds that they do for Bravely Default, you kind of see a little bit something there. But the art style, the presentation, and the visuals in my book were just friggin' outstanding.
Yeah, I think the game looks good. I think we've also been bombarded with just like next gen titles lately and have been mind blown by a lot of graphics, and this doesn't really do that. Like, it's a JRPG that looks good, just don't expect it to blow you out of the water. It doesn't really look like a next gen game per se. I mean, maybe in resolution, because it does do higher resolutions because of the new consoles, but like if you just play it, I don't know, 1080p like most people do, because 4K isn't just widely available, it's just not going to be a next gen game per se. It looks good, it looks fine, especially to me environmentally, like the environment design and each area feeling kind of different. That's to me the biggest achievement visually, for sure. When you go into character models, I think some of them are hit or miss, but that's more a design thing than graphics. So overall I just want to say, the game looks good. It's just not pushing graphics forward in the way that a lot of games have in the past few months.
Yeah. I also wanted to bring up animations, which I think the animations are really good, but I have a very specific problem with them. And I don't know if maybe it's because I'm getting too old and my old man eyes can't keep up with things, but I feel that the animations play out way too fast. Not necessarily like it doesn't look proper, like it looks good, but I feel like they could have benefited a lot from slowing down some of the execution animations and stuff like that. And please cut down on the shaky camera. There are certain animations I can barely figure out what the hell is going on because the camera is going like this, and I'm just like, what? So you do see these animations multiple times, so eventually you start figuring out. But like some of the finishing animations, particularly with some different characters, because you have these combos that you do, and then at the end of the combo you get like a special finishing animation, and it looks real good. But the first time that you watch, you're like, what exactly just happened? I need to watch that one again or 3 more times before I can actually understand what exactly happens when they do that.
But don't worry, you will watch that 3 more times.
Exactly.
So it's fine. No, I kind of come to appreciate how fast those are, because in combat you just don't want to getting in the way. Like, it's a powerful move that you want to use, and you're gonna watch that through, I don't know, like 50 hours of game, maybe more. So yeah, I've appreciated how short those are, for sure. I get what you're saying. Sometimes they're confusing because it's a lot in a very short amount of time. But given how many times you're gonna watch them, I think that's fine. That's mostly for animations in combat, though, right?
Yeah, and animations in combat. Yeah, but I didn't even think about it like that, as in like, oh, we're watching these so many times that maybe if they slowed them down, it would get a little bit too repetitive. That's actually a very good point. And it increases the impact that the animation itself has, because like, doom, doom, bam, doom, done.
Yeah, for sure. Animations outside of combat, though, not the biggest fan. I don't know about you.
Oh, you mean like just traditional running around, jumping around, cinematics? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I guess the running around, the jumping around is basic, but that's fine because it's a JRPG, and the running around is basically an overworld. Like, every time you run into an enemy, it transitions into a combat arena, and that's where the combat actually starts. So even though that's a little bit, of a basic running and jumping animation, that's, I think, fine, forgivable. In cutscenes, it's weird. Like, they have a lot of different types of cutscenes. The full-fledged cutscenes with like full animation treatment, the
big
kind
story
you would
beats.
Yeah,
the big story beats, yeah.
Yeah, like the big boss fights and such. I think those cutscenes are awesome.
Yeah.
Everything else is a bit on the lower budget side, I think.
So like when you're having just like a dialogue with an NPC, or when you're having those like comic book strip type of things. Those are the ones that I remember you telling me you didn't like those, and I want to bring this up because like I actually prefer the ones in Tales versus the ones in Scarlet. Not because of the style, because I think Scarlet had more style, but Scarlet is just like, well, here comes a cutscene. Go get some coffee, sit back, relax. We got about an hour to go, and in here they're a lot faster, and they respect your time a little bit more. So I'm like, okay, just watch this cutscene real quick, get it out of the way, get a little bit of background information, whatnot. It's fine.
True, yeah. I just feel like every time I click those, because they're fully optional, you can click RB at any time while exploring, while doing anything, and it will pop up one of those vignettes with the comic strips and stuff. Just feel like every time I click those, like, I could have skipped that. I got no information out of that. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It feels like, maybe it's because I didn't get super invested with the characters, so I didn't really care about those side dialogues, those side stories, but... yeah, it just felt like something that was very, very skippable. But I think Tales has always been like that. I think the vignettes are not new. And
they're not.
It's just this little side thing.
It's just something that's always been in Tales games. Like you walk for like 5 minutes in the overworld and you go like, oh, by the way, these characters want to talk. You can press the button and you can watch them talk. It's very optional, and it does suffer a little bit from the JRPG thing of over talking about the same information. Like, one of the things that they tell you very early on, which I wouldn't consider this a spoiler, is like, oh, your character can't feel pain. I think they probably even mentioned this in the trailers. Your character can't feel pain, but he can still, be wounded and die. And it's like, there's 3 or 4 different one of those party events where one character's just asking, so you can't feel pain, huh? And in the next one, they're like, I can't believe you can't feel pain. And then in the other one, there's like, so you really don't feel pain, huh? It's like, so yeah, that type of stuff happens. I feel like the more I advanced into the game, the less it started being as repetitive. There's still a couple of them that are repetitive, but there are some that are also interesting. Like there's this character that really likes training. And he did have 2 of those in a row when he's talking about training with weights and doing all of these other things. And they're like, oh, yeah, we got to get a training routine. And it's like, yeah, every now and then they do it, but they start doing it less towards the later half of the game, at least from my experience with that.
Okay. All that stuff is voiced for those little vignettes. Not everything in the game is voiced.
No.
But side missions, like none of them are voiced pretty much, and there are some main mission stuff that is not voiced, and I think that's kind of unforgivable. You can't do stuff like that and then like put all your voice work in these little side vignettes. I don't think that's a great choice, a great allocation of resources. But when it comes to animations during those little moments and even those smaller cutscenes, the lip sync is there's a weird animation going on where the mouths aren't really manually animated. It looks like an AI trying to mouth stuff, and it just looks off no matter which language you pick.
Really? You tested it in Japanese and it still looked off?
Yeah.
But it looked better in Japanese, right? Because to me, at least, it seemed like Japanese had looked a little bit better than in English. But I only played a little bit of the game in Japanese because I was actually okay with the English VO.
Yeah, again, I don't know what they're doing. I'm pretty sure they're not hand animating that. It definitely looks like some AI trying to recognize what the mouths are doing. So
I don't even know how viable.
It looks off either way.
I don't even know how viable it would be to hand animate because, 20 hours in, you see a lot of those vignettes. Dude.
I don't blame them for that. It's just like it looks weird. And, it's a full-priced game and you expect that stuff to be on point. And even if it's not on point during the vignettes, the side dialogue, the side cutscenes, like that stuff has got to be on point during the main quest, Yeah. And I don't think it is. But yeah.
I remember particularly when I fought like the first boss, there was a line that he delivered, and I was like, his mouth is still moving, but he stopped talking a while ago. Okay.
It might be a small pet peeve, we can move on from it, I guess. Just wanted you to know that, while animations look great in combat and the main story beats, Everything else, a little bit on the lower budget side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's quickly bring up sound. I don't think that there's a lot of stuff to say. I personally really like the combat sounds. I feel like they feel meaty. They have a lot of weight behind them. And depending on which character you're playing or which character is present in the animation at each time, it does do like a really good job of delivering the sense of impact and all of that. So that was pretty good in my book.
Mm-hmm.
The overall sound effects.
Yeah, no, I agree overall. Again, I just have one small pet peeve, and this might be due to playing the game in English, but for some attacks, they didn't record multiple takes on the character yelling that attack. So if you're spamming that stuff, you're going to hear just the repeated voice line over and over, especially if you're playing like a caster or a mage type deal. That gets annoying, but
yeah, there's
another small pet peeve, I guess.
There's some anime screaming all of my attacks thing going on.
Yep.
Orochi's Fury! Orochi's Fury! Just like, I heard that
for some
so
of those,
much.
you can definitely tell they didn't record multiple takes, so it's always the same one. It's always that tone. It's all.
Can you? I don't think there's even an option to tone it down in this game, is there? Because I didn't really check, because it doesn't bother me too much, but I know that there are people that are going to be really upset over that stuff.
I don't think there is an option to tone that down, other than don't use special moves.
No, you got to use special moves, particularly the harder you play. You got to like spam everything that you can. But overall, I felt that the voice acting in English was pretty okay. You know, it has its ups and downs as it tends to do, and with localization, there's always a couple of things that are lost because, quite simply, the Japanese language is so different from the English language that without someone taking the trouble to fully localize every little thing and adapt some of the jokes and some of the stuff, not everything lands, but I thought that it was pretty okay. Minus that there is one criticism that I do have with the voice acting. It's mostly in the chapter that I was in just now, which is like the third chapter of the game. There's a character that has a lot of stuff happen to it, and this character screams a lot. And I was playing with I like playing with high volume to hear the sounds and all. Every time this character screamed, I was like, Jesus Christ, what is going on? I would actually have to lower the volume because it was pretty strong. Let's just put it like that. That character.
Are we talking cutscenes or actual gameplay?
Cutscenes. No, cutscenes.
Okay.
Like in certain cutscenes, and this character would start screaming. I was like, Jesus, this actually hurts. But other than that, like I feel like it's pretty good. But I did play,
I think for the most part, like yesterday, I was even feeling like I was watching a cutscene and feeling like, man, we've got some very good voice actors in this game.
Yeah,
like this doesn't. Sometimes you hear it, that feeling you get. Sometimes I'm playing a Japanese game that's been translated or localized to English, and my girlfriend, without looking at the game, she says that's a Japanese game because they all have that tone that sounds like sort of translated, and the sentences aren't really what you would say in English. They're correct, but they're not how you speak usually. So it has some of that, but it also hides that just with voice actor talent. I think the voice acting is actually pretty damn good.
Yeah, obviously, like I played a little bit in Japanese, and Japanese gives a completely different vibe, and I think that the most hardcore Tales fans are most likely going to be playing in Japanese. I think that the VO in Japanese is just better, but you can play this in English, and I think the English is actually still pretty good. And like you even said, you thought it was above like what we've come to expect.
I don't think you'd be missing out by playing in English at all.
Yeah, exactly. I think you still get a good job there. The one of the things that I would also bring up is the soundtrack. Sometimes I find that it feels too epic in certain situations. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're in a much more toned down situation. Soundtrack's like dun, 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 and I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess this is really
just chilling. Damn.
Yeah. So every now and then that happens, but most of the times it's good, and I do like the soundtrack. I think the soundtrack's pretty good.
Pretty good is okay. Yeah, pretty good is a fair assessment. I don't think it's doing much for me. it's the soundtrack you expected and not going above and beyond and to give you anything else. It's competent. I don't think it will be a very memorable soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Then, in terms of story, which is the thing that obviously we don't want to get into spoiler territory or anything, but from the story that I've experienced, it actually goes to some very interesting places. The overall setup, like not the main plot or anything, but like just the overall setup of the game is like there's a race of people that are the Danans, and then there's a race of people that are the Ranans. And the Ranans enslave the Danans to suck out their life force, pretty much, for this special contest that they have for someone to become the sovereign, whatever that is. That's kind of like the overall idea of what this story is about. So you're one of the Danans, and you're fighting against the oppression of the Ranans. And that's kind of like the plot. But the way that things end up going down and the interaction between these two races, it gets extremely interesting the further you get into the game, because like each of the zones in the game, which is like I guess each of the chapters almost, has like a different vibe to it. So like the zone that you start in is like slave labor, everybody's just like getting slaved away in this fiery hellscape, which is interesting because usually RPGs tend to save the volcanic fire looking hellscape for the end, and in this game it's like, no, you get it right at the beginning. Here's the fire, the lava, the hellscape, and then the next zones are going to be different. So they're taking a bit of a different approach there from traditional stuff, but overall,
so think about the full world divided into 5 different areas, each one of them governed by a lord, and that lord is governing the area as they see fit, which means every time you go from one area to the next, it all has a different vibe and it almost feels like a different story. Even though, you know, it's all connected because all these lords are competing to do a thing.
to see who can suck up the most life force from the Danans, basically. Yes. How did you feel about the story, what you've played of it up until this point, which I believe you've beaten the second chapter, right?
Yeah, I beat the second lord, going into the third, and that's where I stopped. I think you're spot on. I think not only visually are the areas very distinct, they also give you a different vibe whenever you're there because it does a great job of world building, I think. I think the Danans and Renans stuff, a bit on the nose with the classism and racism sometimes, because it's like, yeah, this is a Danan, but doesn't mean it's a good guy, you know? People, individuals, they sometimes are different, and like it hammers that point to the point of exhaustion sometimes. But other than that, I think the world building, the setup they have is pretty good. It's pretty interesting. Like it makes you want to check out the next area, given how different the first two are. It's something that makes you go, I wonder what's gonna be the deal with the next city, you know? Because just the first two felt so different that that's definitely a point that would move me forward in the story.
And let me tell you right now, if you think the first two were different, you have no idea what you'd be in for in the third. The third one is actually one of the story moments that marked me the most because it's actually pretty cool. They do a really good job, and it's like I'm trying real hard not to spoil things, but like every zone kind of like has a theme. Like we told you what the theme is in the first one. We're not going to be talking about the other ones. The first one's like, oh, this fiery hellscape of doom and gloom, and everybody's just getting oppressed. But then in the other zones, it's different, and they're trying to, because at the end of the day, they're all trying to harvest energy. They're just trying to get the energy out of the Danans through different ways. And the ways in which they do this are very interesting, and the implications that each of them has is also pretty cool. But
awesome, yeah. But you just reminded me of a plot point in the second zone that I felt like it was, we're gonna give you a twist for the sake of twisting it, and also not explain why this makes sense. And I did feel that a couple of times, but mainly on the second zone, I did feel that very heavily, because that was a main plot point, a main thing in the story, where it feels like, let's say, a character does something that is very out of character, and the first question as a player, you're like, why did you do that? But they don't really explain that. They just like, hey, wasn't that unexpected and cool? And like, no, you gotta explain what is going on. Why was that a thing? And you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I just don't really agree with it. I think it made perfect sense, and I
think they leave it to the player to figure out why that happened, but they never tackle it themselves.
Well, yeah,
and
but it's like
all you're left with is speculation. Like, you don't know. Like, that makes sense in your head because you made up a story to fill it, but it doesn't.
No, because here's the thing. Before they made the reveal, I suspected it.
Oh, cool. All right.
so it's like,
you suspected something that makes zero sense, Rui. I'm sorry to tell you, it makes zero.
It made sense to me. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I saw the story thing happening. It's like the moment. Here's the thing. The moment I got to the second zone and I saw that character you're talking about, I was like, something's off with this guy. And then when they started playing that cutscene that you're talking about, where they do the big reveal, I was just like, okay, this is going to happen. 100% this is going to happen. But then there is a little bit of a moment there where I was like, wait, okay, I get it now. Yeah. But like, to me, it made sense. To me, it made perfect sense. But anyway, it's like we're just talking around it because we don't want to spoil. Let's just say that, in my opinion, I think the story is really good, and I'm definitely going to keep playing because, like, sometimes we'll play a game until we're ready to make the video and then we don't touch it anymore. This one, I definitely want to keep going, not just for the story, but also for the combat, because I'm friggin' hooked on it.
Are we transitioning to combat? Are we talking combat now?
First we go gameplay, because I want to bring up a couple of things.
Damn, I thought that was a good segue.
Yeah, I know. But it's like, I'm very structured, okay? And
I know.
But yeah, I want to go into gameplay because I want to talk about the structure of the game first, which I think that structurally, it's very much a JRPG game with everything that you would expect. Like, you have your main quest, you have a couple of side quests, and you have one thing that I was hoping was going to be different. I mean, the demo kind of reveals what it is. It's the fact that the maps are sectioned off. Because, like, the first trailers that you saw of Tales of Arise, you'd almost go, oh my god, it's like a full open world type deal, right? But it's actually just, it's sectioned off maps. It makes me wonder if the game is maybe held back a little bit because they needed to make a PlayStation 4 version, or if they could have actually implemented that level of open worldness on the PS5 with those visuals and all that. I think it would have been way cooler, but obviously finding a PlayStation 5 is kind of like finding a unicorn, so...
Yeah, I guess. They also don't try to hide those loading screens and stuff using the SSDs of the new consoles. So it is literally a JRPG in structure, with sectioned off areas, with main quests, with side quests, collectibles, a lot of materials to gather. You get money to buy potions from vendors and all that kind of stuff. Structurally, it is kind of old school.
Yeah. There's also,
whether you like it or not.
Yeah. There's also a crafting system for weapons and accessories. Now, the accessory crafting system is something that I hadn't really seen that much before, but that could be because, you can only really play so many JRPGs in your lifetime because there's not enough time to play every one of them. But the way that the accessories work is like, so you'll mine stuff out of like ore and whatnot, and then you'll bring the whatever resource you got to a vendor, and you'll be able to craft an accessory out of it. But the properties of the ore that you got are kind of like randomized. So there's like a different pool of stats and stuff that you can get out of them. And then you can upgrade them to get like additional things. So that I thought was pretty cool because it gives you a little bit more of a degree in customizing what you want each of the characters to have, because most of the other things like, crafting a weapon, great, this weapon deals more damage. Like that's the special property of that. It just deals more damage. An armor, great, this armor has more defense. It just has more defense. There's never really like a choice. It's like, hey, this armor is better than this one, the next one's better than the next one. Whereas accessories, they do give you a little bit of choice. Like, hey, do you want to have like maybe something that gives you a little bit of magic find almost, because there's a stat in there. It's not exactly magic find, but it does kind of the same thing. or you want to have like maybe more resistance, maybe you're taking a bit of a beating. You have those things that you can do with the accessories that I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, think about it as you're crafting an accessory that gives you, let's say, elemental resistance.
Yeah.
But then you got random stats below the elemental resistance that go plus 10% fire damage,
Yeah.
and that's the stuff that would be randomized. Yeah, it's kind of cool. It's better, especially since you can craft at any vendor that you find in the world.
Yes.
Like, you don't have to go to a specific place to craft that stuff, so you can just craft on the fly. I definitely appreciated that.
Yeah, because like you'd be getting to checkpoints, and usually on most checkpoints you'd have like a thing that works kind of like a Souls bonfire, because you can rest on it and monsters respawn and whatnot.
Right.
And near those bonfires there would be a dude that would just straight up craft you a sword, like right there on the spot. He's just like a dude with a backpack. He's like, hey, you want me to craft you a sword? I can hook you up. Just bring me the materials, no problem.
Bring me the materials. I got your sword, man.
Yeah, because it would. I think that's one of those things where they valued gameplay over immersion, and in those situations, I absolutely prefer that, because otherwise, it'd be like, okay, you got the materials, time to teleport back to town, and then teleport back here. It's like, that type of convenience stuff. I'm actually pretty cool about, and I thought that they did a good job. Now, one of the systems that you weren't introduced to is that you can eventually raise cattle.
Cool.
You basically can put like cows and pigs and chickens on a barn, and then it's like when they mature, you go in there and you get like steaks for the cooking system in the game.
Sounds a lot of fun.
It's actually the demo area. That's the third area.
Really? Okay.
But that food you can then use with the cooking system of the game, which there's a cooking system. You can get buffs and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of like the overall structure. You go from zone to zone, then there's a boss at the end of each of the chapters. You beat the boss, you move on to the next zone. The zones, like we said, are sectioned off maps. And there's a couple of things that you'll only be able to access later, so they give you a reason to come back into some of those zones. Like you might find a rock that's blocking a path, and you'll need like a special character to break that rock or something like that.
Oh, true,
yeah. And there's also optional bosses that are a little bit tougher than your usual boss.
I have a problem with those optional bosses.
I
swear to God, first area, one of those optional bosses is there. You cannot see the level of enemies before you engage in combat. So let's say you're a level 7 and you go into that's a bigger guy, and your character gives you some line of dialogue going, oh, this guy is stronger, I better watch out. I'm like, yeah, we'll be fine. I know how to fight. You get in there and it's a level 45 praying
43.
mantis. Okay, and I'm a level 7 dealing 1 damage per hit. This guy has got like 25,000 health. It's, okay, so I shouldn't be careful around this guy. I should just avoid it, because this is an impossible fight. Then you press start and you go into flee, and flee is grayed out. So I just have to die. So I just have to die now.
The same thing. Here's the thing. In their defense, specifically when you talk to the NPC that gives you a quest for that monster, I don't know if you did that or not, but the NPC specifically says, yeah, I don't think you can beat him. I think you should come back later. The problem is you don't know what later is, because you don't know what is. So like, I didn't attack him the first time I was there. I went into like the second area, beat the second boss, all of that. And then I came back and I was like, I should be able to beat this guy now, right? And then I jump in there and I'm like level, I don't know, 17 or 18 or something like that. And I jump in there. Oh, he's level 43. Okay, never mind.
Never mind. Yeah, there was a bonfire next to it, so I jumped in straight away. But yeah, that's an example of a character that of an enemy that if you die to it, it's fine. The game actually spawns
there's
you
no
next
punishment
to the enemy. Yeah. There is a punishment, which is it takes away your cure points or whatever they're called.
But I mean, you can just
you
rest
can't
and
heal,
get them back.
Yeah, you can't heal the party anymore if you are out of that resource. But since you're close to a bonfire, hey, you just go rest and you're back in shape, and that's totally fine. In other places in the world, not so much. And I kind of wish I could see like what I'm up against before I engage in combat, or at least let me flee. Let me flee for like, oh no, I'm in over my head.
On their defense, that hasn't happened since that one. It's just for so far it's been a one-time thing. That level 43 optional boss.
One other case, yeah. I've had a second case of that, yeah.
Really? Because I've killed everything that I've ran into since that moment. So
you didn't find that guy.
Maybe I didn't. But that's a thing, and that's kind of like the overall structure. So now let's get into the nitty-gritty of the actual combat, which is one of the things that really motivated me to really keep playing, because I'm enjoying the story, I'm enjoying all this stuff, but I'm very much a gameplay-driven guy, so I need to have good combat, and the combat, I've really, really been enjoying it. How about you?
And I think this is going to be the interesting part of this video, because I'm also a gameplay driven guy, and because of combat I am dropping this game. So this will be interesting, because you're going to get two perspectives here.
Okay, so the overall flow of the combat is like you have basic attacks and you have arts. And the arts use a resource which is called AG. It's basically like a little square that you have next to your character. Whenever you use an art, it spends like 1, 2, 3, depending on how powerful the art is, it will spend a certain amount of AG. And the AG takes a little bit to regenerate. Not too much. You can almost spam this thing nonstop. The only reason there's like a break in regeneration is to stop you from continuing your combos on monsters, because the whole point of the game is for you to weave in arts, auto attacks, and these other things that you can do called boosters, which are just like you can call another character in to do a special attack. And they want you to figure out a way to chain as many of these together as possible to fill out a little blue thing on the mob. And when you fill it all out, you get to do like a super special devastating finisher attack on the monster. And
which is the one we were talking about, that is fast and confusing, but I appreciate it being fast because of how many times you see it. Yeah. So there's that whole system going on, and I find it really satisfying because you have to kind of like master, which combos am I going to use? When am I supposed to use my basic attacks? Which was something when I played the demo I didn't really understand, because they gave you a bunch of AG, and I'm like, why would I ever do a basic attack? I can do these more powerful, arts attacks. There's no reason to do it. But when you actually play the game, you start understanding, okay, no, I have to weave this in together with these other things to get a little bit more extension on the combo, so that I can actually fill the blue thing and then do the finisher and destroy the monster. Yeah, I do like that dance a lot. I also, something I did in the demo that then I realized was the wrong thing to do was spam the same ability multiple times whenever I had the chance. And then the game teaches you that if you do the same ability twice without at least 4 attacks in between them, they scale down. So like if you want to be optimal, you're always
diminishing
changing
returns.
abilities. Yeah, there's diminishing returns. So like I kind of like that optimization aspect of that, where it's forcing you to not just do the one thing. It's forcing you to adapt and be like, okay, I gotta use the next ability now, or the next one, and just build combos that way. Now that part of it is definitely a lot of fun.
So then there's also the boost gauge system, which is depending on how well the characters are doing, they'll start activating these special attacks that I was talking about, which you fire off by pressing on the D-pad. And these will also extend your combos, like it'll give you time to replenish your AG. So like, for instance, Shion, which is the second character that you get, whenever you fire off her boost, she will pull out a rifle and start shooting, and it's like, I don't know, she hits 5 or 6 times, and that gives you enough time to extend the combo through that so that you can then replenish your AG and go back in and continue attacking. Your own character gets boost gauge as well. Even characters that are not active in your party get boost gauge, so you can call in characters, and this is actually a really good system, because a lot of times when you're playing these RPGs, you pick your party and then you play with your party, and everybody else, they're just in there in your group, but they're not really doing anything. Whereas in this game, you actually call them from the sidelines, because they'll recharge and they'll like go in there, do like a special attack, and then hop back out. So that gives you a little bit more sense that, this is an actual party of like more than 4 characters. I thought that was also pretty cool. And these boost attacks will actually do different things, which, there will be advantages to using them against certain characters. So like, for instance, there's a martial artist, a monk type character, that his specialty, which I find interesting because he's the only one that doesn't have a weapon, but he's really good at breaking the armor of enemies with his fists. So he'll punch through like characters that have shields and stuff like that. He'll punch through, break the shield, and give you an opening. Then there's another character that you can use to like interrupt whenever the enemies are casting spells, and she actually steals their spells and interrupts them. That's also pretty cool. Shiona's specialty thing is like she'll shoot monsters that fly. They'll fall to the ground if she hits them. So it's cool to be able to manage all of that, not just in terms of dealing damage and extended combos, but also with the different situations that the game presents to you.
Yeah, I did like that combat flow, so to speak. I sometimes wish that it was a game where you had to select a party of members that did nothing, because having the party members there behaving on their own, and you can switch to any character at any time. And something I definitely really appreciate is that every character plays very differently.
Very differently, yeah.
Yeah, you press the same buttons to do special abilities and basic attacks, but they all have, for instance, like when they perfect dodge, they all have a unique counter. They all have unique gimmicks that you can do during your combos, during your, during basic combat. For instance, the main character has a sword, and if you hold down the button on any of his abilities, he does a stronger fire attack that drains his own health. And that's a gimmick exclusive to that character. You have the spellcaster that steals magic. She can charge her attacks and she can store them to launch them later. So like every character plays in a unique way, and I definitely appreciated that. That said, the switching between characters mid-combat is something that I don't think it's super practical or fun.
Which is why I don't do it. I never do it.
Yeah, I tend to pick a character and just, I'm going to do this character for this encounter. But what that ends up doing is the other characters are behaving on their own, and they're sort of they are trying their best. Let's put it like that. But their best isn't always good enough.
So this is where you and me had a very different experience, and it's like, I don't know if it's because of the fact that I'm playing on hard, and maybe on hard the AI gets better. I didn't really test that stuff because I just wanted to.
Sense.
Yeah, that would make no sense. But it's like, I didn't test it because I wanted to basically get as further into the game as I could, as opposed to, let me test out all of these little nitty-gritty things. But basically, Globku had been telling me that his characters would get hit by all kinds of spells. And let me tell you, I have so much confidence in the AI of my characters that yesterday, when I was fighting one of the main bosses, the character I was playing as died, and I did not take control of the other characters because I don't know how to play them. So I just let the CPUs kill the boss, and they did. I mean, the boss was about to die anyways because it was very close to the end, but they were doing fine. Like, they were dodging spells. Like, as a matter of fact, when you told me that your Xion kept getting hit by basic things, that was really weird to me because, like, when Xion was trying to res me, for instance, she would never stand in place. Like, if an NPC would target her during a res, she would cancel the res with a dodge. Sometimes she would perfect evade out of the stuff that they were casting at her. And then after she dodged it, she would try to res again. So this is the type of stuff that I saw with my eyes. You had a very different experience.
And I showed you that experience.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not like I'm making it up.
Yeah.
No, there's some enemies in this game that, their attack, they face a direction, and 5 seconds later, they will shoot a laser that kills a character. But you got 5 seconds to dodge. If they aim at me, I'm dodging just fine. If they aim at one of my teammates, you think they're going to dodge? No, they're just going to keep attacking, and then they're going to get killed. And I definitely feel that the harder the encounter gets, and there's some difficulty spikes that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
The harder the game gets, the more incompetent I feel like the party is. Because, like, if I'm dodging attacks, if I am putting in the damage and dodging attacks and, being good at the game, I shouldn't have to worry about the AI-controlled characters. But I feel like I'm babysitting the entire party all the time. And I don't know why my experience has been so different from Rui's. He's on PlayStation, I'm on Xbox. He's playing on hard, I'm playing on normal. I don't know. I don't know what's going on. And there's a lot of like party customization stuff you can do. You can go into the menus and customize your AI behavior. But if you find the behavior that says dodge, please do tell me what it is. Because it's not... there's one option that says keep away. And sure enough, they will keep away from the enemy, but they'll still get hit by ranged attacks. And I don't know, man. I'm 8 hours in and I'm still babysitting my entire party. And I almost wish like the game was balanced for... one character instead of a full party, because what happens is the damage doesn't come in those harder encounters. The damage doesn't come from your single character doing abilities. Like you're just contributing to the overall damage, which is everyone attacking the same target. And that's how the game is balanced. It's balanced for a big party attacking big health pools. If you're left alone, if everyone dies because they're not dodging basic attacks, you're left with doing maintenance. You cannot kill a boss on your own because you don't have the damage output. And you're like just going around and reviving characters because they just stand still and attack. It's just
so funny to me that you keep saying that you have to babysit your party when I was playing, I felt the exact opposite. Like, whenever I'd get hit, I would just feel like, oh, Shion's babysitting me. I'm fine. It's all good.
I'm not gonna say that. Sometimes I didn't. I totally got hit sometimes, and I was like, okay, Shion's got this. She's gonna heal me. But that's you trusting your party, and that's how the game should be at all times. But yeah, when you're dodging attacks because you see, okay, maybe now it's time to stop attacking because this enemy just started charging an art and now it's going to shoot it. Maybe it's time to stop attacking and dodge whatever it's coming. Oh, there's a big poison sphere right here. Maybe I'll stand over there. The AI doesn't do that, or at least not in my experience.
I even felt that I'm not sure if this is the case or not because again, I didn't test this thoroughly because I'm just trying to play the game, right? But I even felt like the AI, I think, takes less damage than the player character. Because to give you an idea, when I was fighting the very first boss, I was having a really tough time, and so what I did was I swapped to controlling Shion so that I could just stay away from it. And I was just like, so he's getting hit. It doesn't seem like he's taking as much damage as I was when I was controlling him. That's
I see what you're saying.
I don't know if this is the case or not. Maybe the AI was just playing better than I was. But I was like, dude, he was doing fine. Like when the computer was controlling the main character, I was like, hey, he's doing fine. I'm just sitting back here shooting and healing when I have to. But, you know, that's how I beat the first boss on the hardest difficulty. It was just like I sat back and I just shot with Shion and whatever. None of my problem. I do feel also that bosses tend to focus the character that you're controlling a little bit more often than the other ones.
I don't know
Because when I was playing with the main character in that first boss, he would target me a lot, and would rarely target Shion. And when I swapped, it seemed like he targets Shion a little bit more. But yeah, again, I'm not 100% sure. But either way, one other system in the combat that you are not aware of, because this comes later, is that and this is a system that I felt should have come much earlier, but it is the combat chain bonus. I'm not sure what to call it, but it's basically like, imagine you're in an area, there's multiple enemies in that area, you're incentivized to go through and kill them all in quick succession because they'll increase the rewards and experience and all of that. There's like a counter counting down every time that you finish a combat. So it's like if you go and you engage another one, it levels up, and then you get more rewards and stuff like that. And that was actually a system that I would have liked to have earlier, because of that difficulty spike that we're going to get into right now, which is the second boss. The second boss of the game, let me tell you guys right now, we're not going to go into details about who it is, what the mechanics are, but it was basically a wall, because like I said, I was playing the game in the hardest difficulty. I was beating everything just fine, like no problem. It wasn't like I was, oh my god, this fight, like I'm freaking sweat mode over here. None of that. Because like I optimized my party to be more survivable, so my combats would be a little bit slower, but that's fine. Because you're still dealing enough damage to get through, and you're punching through, and it's not really a problem. But then you get to the boss, and it's like, forget about that. That boss was, like, almost every move the boss did would one-shot one of my characters, so it's like you'd have to be perfect dodging, doing everything absolutely perfect. Then the boss summons clones of himself, and there's like 5 bosses instead of 1, all doing one-shot level damage. And I was like, dude, what is going on in this game? This is insane. And this is me on hard. Now, you went into that boss on normal. What was the experience like?
So I beat that boss second try, so I can't complain too hard. But I did feel that difficulty spike because for the first time I did not pass a DPS check that the boss put in front of me. Where it was like there's a phase that if you don't kill a thing fast enough, it kind of wipes your party. Doesn't really wipe it. There's always a surviving member. In my case, Shion was the survivor, and we could just revive from there on out. But first time I died, it was, I mean, once again, because I couldn't babysit the party. Because, you know, we don't pass the DPS check, which is odd, because the rest of the game was fine up till that point. So now I feel like I gotta level up for this one fight. It's weird. And... okay, everyone in the party dies. Shion is alive. Shion can revive someone. I revive someone else with an item. That's fine. Now we have 3 members alive. We just gotta stay alive and heal over time. Thing is, they keep dying because they can't dodge basic lightning stuff. So that was the first wipe. So second game, I just had to be a lot better at you know, preemptively healing, preemptively using orange gel to replenish the cure points, so Shion could keep healing whenever teammates messed up, and just had to play a lot safer, pausing a lot more of the game. And I think that kind of takes away from the flow of combat, because you can just play it as an action game, but what that boss forced me to do was just a lot of pausing, a lot of character switching, a lot of going into your items and using them to preemptively heal and stuff like that. And yeah, that's definitely a big difficulty spike because it forced me to do all that stuff. Not to say that, you know, difficulty spikes aren't appreciated sometimes, but I just feel like it made the game worse.
Yeah,
it wasn't as fun doing that encounter. Boss fights are really good. I do want to highlight that. Like, boss fights have very unique mechanics and they're very fun to learn. Maybe the damage is a bit over the top on that guy.
Yeah, it's like...
but that's it. Yeah.
That boss is probably the only real hard criticism that I have on my whole experience. Like, that boss put a huge dent, because some people might think, oh, maybe you were going too fast because you were saying that you were just trying to get through the game. Maybe you didn't level up enough. No, you don't understand. I did literally every single side quest there was to do. And when I realized that boss was a little bit harder, I actually went back and I ran the entire area before that boss 5 times to level up. Okay? So like I wasn't trying to like escape the grind. I actually grinded to see if I could still beat that boss. But the thing is, it just felt like there was too much of a level difference between my party and the boss. And like anything that the boss did would just like wipe out a member. And then, like you said, the moment one of the members gets wiped out, you're playing catch up because you're like, okay, I got to use this item, got to use that item, got to use this thing. And items are limited. So like you were saying that you're full of orange gel, which is the thing that replenishes CP, which is cure points. This is what allows Shion to continue to heal the party nonstop. There's a limit to that. So
yeah, but there's a reason. I'm in the second area. I was starting to get a little bit fed up with babysitting the party and the combat and the loops and some other stuff. Like we talked about how the story does good world building and stuff, but the characters themselves, the game didn't grab me at all. Like I don't gravitate towards any of them, and honestly, I can't hear Shion talk for much longer because she's just a tsundere archetype, and I don't think there's a lot more to that character, at least not so far. So like I was honestly getting a little bit bored of that. So on the second area, I started bypassing a lot of combat. Which, hey, you go, oh, yeah. That's why you failed the DPS check. No,
it's not.
I could still go into combat and it was fine. Yeah. I could still go into combat and it was fine. Like I didn't feel weak at any point. But yeah, maybe because I was skipping a lot of stuff, really, that's why I had a ton of orange gel, and you have a kind of a low cap of like 15 items in your inventory. You cannot grab more than 15. At that point, you got to discard one to grab another one.
On the hard difficulty, that's not a problem at all.
No, I believe you.
I don't even know what orange gel is anymore. I don't have any. Like every single boss fight just takes up all of my orange gel I have to just to keep the fight going because there's just so much damage going on. But yeah, that second boss left kind of a bitter taste. I did bump down the difficulty, basically. I bumped it down to moderate. And even on moderate, I finished that fight with like one member alive. And it wasn't even me. It was just like an NPC, but the boss was at like, I don't know, 500 hit points or something, and the NPC just finished it off. And I was just like, dude, that's crazy. That does not seem like they balanced this one properly at all. And it's important to mention that immediately after that boss fight, I bumped it back up to hard, and I was playing fine again. It was just that one boss fight that seems like, you know, I think it's going to get nerfed. I think that there's no way that they don't nerf that. And
we'll see. I don't know. We're this close to release. It might just be the way it is.
We'll see. But then finally, one other thing that bothered me a little bit, but this is like an optional thing, is that, you know, they sent us and it's like first world problem, right? They sent us the whatever ultimate version or whatever it is, comes with a bunch of DLC. And some of that DLC are weapons. And the first time that I started playing the game, I didn't know. So I'm just like, I'm going through the DLC, I'm claiming everything. I'm like, okay, whatever. And then I notice in my inventory, wait a minute, there's a sword in here. And I compared the damage. And then, yeah, the basic sword that you get at the start of the game does like 30 damage. The DLC sword does like 130.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well,
any of that stuff.
I guess I have to delete this save file now. And I deleted the save file, and then I went back and I didn't pick up the actual items because, you know, you want to get a proper experience and proper progression. So I was not a big fan that they put DLC items like that. There's also like potions.
Pre-order DLC and Ultimate Edition DLC. That's in RPGs. That's always stuff that breaks the early game. Always, without exception.
But in terms of the actual like cosmetics and stuff that you get from DLC, I didn't think that they were, you know, because they basically gave you like a layered armor system. So any armor that you pick up, you can basically use it as, like, say you have an armor and you don't like the way that it looks, you can go back to the look of a previous armor while still wearing the one with the better.
But not every armor has a look.
Yeah, not every armor has a look.
Some armor is just stats. Not every armor has a look. Yeah.
Yeah, but, you know, you can go back and get some of the earlier skins for your stuff, and I thought that was pretty cool. But, you know, if you want to enjoy some of the characters in like bikinis and more revealing clothes, oh yeah, they have all that stuff in the DLC straight up. But overall, on my personal note, after the 20-something hours that I've put into it, I'm enjoying the game a lot. I think it's a lot of fun. Biggest criticism that I would have is that second boss. I think they need to balance that out a little bit better, but not really a big deal because you can just bump down the difficulty, move on. Everything else so far has been very, very enjoyable. I like it. I like the story. I like where it's going, the visuals, all of that stuff. I'm having a blast.
I've been having some trouble putting how I feel about this game into words. Because I don't want to be overly negative. I do think the game does a lot of stuff well, but at the same time, I kind of don't want to play it anymore. And I've been trying in my mind to understand why that is. So I'm going to give you a little overview and hopefully not come off as too much of a critic, because I do think that this game is going to please Tales fans.
Oh, yeah.
I do think Tales fans are going to enjoy this. I don't think a lot of people outside of that fandom are gonna like it, and that's I think that it's not just Tales fans. I think JRPG fans, like people that enjoy JRPG mechanics. But I don't think JRPG fans will necessarily like this if it didn't vibe with previous Tales games. That's what I mean. I think Tales had an advantage, and it's a 25-year-old series at this point. And it had an advantage over other JRPGs, which was kind of an advantage that happened a little bit randomly. Because back, 20 years ago, I was playing turn-based RPGs, like most of us were. That's how JRPGs were. They were turn-based games. And Tales was different because it was an action game. Nowadays, we've seen the evolution maybe starting, I don't know, back in Final Fantasy 12. You see Final Fantasy 12 into 15 into Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and you can clearly see the turn-based combat of Final Fantasy turning into an action game. And that's what most JRPGs are doing nowadays, and that's what Tales has always been doing. So I feel like Tales should have a bigger advantage that it's not pulling off, because I don't think the combat feels as good as a Final Fantasy VII remake. I don't even think it feels as good as a Ni no Kuni, which was another RPG that I really liked, for instance. And it's weird to me that a 20-year-old series that has been doing action combat, like, it feels like it should have more of an edge, and it just feels like every RPG outside of this is evolving a lot more. And Tales games to me have always felt a little bit behind the times. There's something about them that is slightly outdated, and there's no exception here. And I had a different expectation going in. I really did. Looking at trailers and stuff, and like, finally, these guys are making a modern-ass video game. But a lot of it still doesn't feel new. And I think that's why, you know, I don't feel like the action combat is as good as other RPGs made action combat. And I don't feel like any of the characters are grabbing me story-wise. That's a very personal thing, though. Like, yeah. I totally accept that if you feel differently. But it's a $60 game. And I think we're just being bombarded by next-gen games that are innovating, that are doing new things, and I can't wait to see what the next JRPG is going to do, like what's the next step in the genre. But Tales is not the next step in the genre, and I feel like at this point, with the amount of options that we have, with the amount of games that we have, recommending Tales at $60, we're not that kind of channel, but if we were, this is a game that I would say wait for a sale, maybe. Because I do think there's stuff that was worth seeing, worth playing, but I don't think it's that cutting edge. It's that JRPG that's worth the full price. Maybe you can justify it in content because it will be hours long for sure. Oh, I just don't think the quality is up to par. You know,
I mean, I don't necessarily agree with you. I think you went in with too high expectations, maybe, because those early trailers did make it seem like something different. Like I said, you saw some of those early trailers, me too, and I was thinking, oh, this time is actually going to be like open world, you know, because it looked like that type of thing, right? I don't remember if in the early trailers they went into the specifics of combat, but I think I remember a lot of people talking about.
Shots. Yeah,
they showed shots, but they didn't show like that the combat was instanced, right? They didn't show that, or am I wrong?
No.
Yeah, exactly. See, that's the thing. Because I remember when I saw that first comment, I was like, oh, it's not going to be like you run into monsters and then you go do... It's not going to be like it is, right? You thought that from those early trailers, and I get it. And that's why maybe your expectations were a little bit too high.
Because that's what JRPGs are doing nowadays.
Yeah.
That's what JRPGs are. And this is not at that level. This is like a step back, almost.
It's one of those things like... Tales is doing what Tales has always done. So it's kind of like It's a Tales game. It's one of the most polished. I think it's one of the most polished Tales games that has come out. And if you like that formula, you'll like this. If you're someone who's brand new to it, then maybe you won't like it. Personally, I like the formula, so it's working for me. So, yeah.
And it feels like it's a formula that should work for me as well. Because I loved when JRPGs started moving in that direction. But I don't love Tales. You know? It's not weird. It just feels like I've played better than Tales, so it's hard for me to enjoy it.
I mean, the way that I look at it, not every game needs to be the best game ever, but you know, it's one of those things. We could be talking about this for hours, right?
No, I agree with you. It's just hard for me to go, oh yeah, buy this $60 game that doesn't feel as good as other $60 games, you know?
That's why I never tell people to buy it. I'll just say, hey, you like the gameplay? I probably put up some gameplay during this conversation. You like the gameplay? Does that look good? Do you think you like the stuff we talked about? Then yeah, go get it. If you don't, then don't.
That's so dangerous though, because I looked at the gameplay and I felt like I was going to like it and I didn't. Right?
Yeah, but that's why...
At the gameplay.
But listen, this is why we've spent 1 hour in excruciating detail explaining how everything works.
True.
And
sure.
at the time,
we can't tell people what to do. We can't tell people what to do. They'll do whatever they want, and they'll take our opinions with the weight that they want to take it. And I wouldn't feel good if I didn't put this out there.
Yeah.
The main thing to me is that it's doing what Tales games have always done, which is feel like they're a step behind, but also that's kind of their vibe, you know. Let's be real. Tales games have never evolved the genre.
I mean, the first one did. right?
Okay. Yes. Yes.
When they came out with their real-time combat, that evolved the genre. But then after
Sure,
that, they kind
sure.
of just like, you know.
And it feels like everyone else is doing what Tales was meant to do. It feels like everyone else is doing action combat in the way that Tales games have always been pitching. But it also feels like everyone else is doing it better.
I don't know. What I can tell you,
Yeah.
I like it. I like
Sure.
it. I'm having a blast. You are
I'm
not
happy
having
for
it,
you.
but that's, you know, this is why I like having this as a discussion, because this way people get more than one
100%.
perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, that's going to be it for this video, guys. Thank you all very much for watching. If you enjoyed it, hit it up with a like. If you did not enjoy it, hit it up with a dislike. Feedback is important. You can find Globku in links in the description below. He's probably going to be having a review up in his channel as well, probably at the exact same time as this one. So
I don't know. The editing is going to take a while. But same day, for sure.
yeah, same day. Same day you can expect another video with his opinion. But yeah, this has been it. We'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong. Stay safe. Peace out.
Bye.